but only by the principles of Jesus Christ. Not traditions, not philosophies, but the principles of Jesus Christ guides their life, inspires their actions every day. And so a structural building serves only as a meeting point for fellowship and training for the people of God. Where you have a structure, the purpose of that structure, just like we had the synagogues, they were places of meeting, meant for fellowship, meant for training God's people, equipping God's people for works of service and life in the faith. If we have this understanding, then it will enable the church to be the church always. That is not limited to a particular place, not limited to a particular time, that we don't wait until Sunday and we go there and spend 2, 3, 4 hours, long sermons, and we say we are worshiping God. And we will not wait until we get to a particular place and we say, oh, the church have gathered. We understand that we are living temples, and then we manifest Christ wherever we find ourselves. That the church is always active from Sunday to Sunday, from Monday to Monday, because it is a community of people. And so as they enter into the society, they manifest the rule of God upon their lives. They do the will of God, as the Lord's Prayer says. They strive to do the will of God, live according to the principles of Christ. Now, this is important because we have had people have built structures, and then we are looking for workers. They are requesting for workers to come to that place, to bring people in. And so you see that you cannot refer to a structure as a church until the people of faith gather in that place. You can't say that, a church is existing, in that place. So I'm not talking about structure. I'm dealing with people because that is what the Bible, is also talking about. When he said, I have chosen you, you didn't choose me, and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, and fruit that will last. That is the issue of the effective church planting, because it's not just planting, but something that endures. Verse 8 says, this is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing you yourself to be my disciples. Then there are two issues. One, much fruit. The other one, fruit that will last. These are critical points that we need to keep in mind. The second issue is expansion and growth. Growth has to do with the gradual and consistent increase or expansion over time. Consistent increase or expansion over time. And we are dealing with spiritual growth, numerical growth, incarnational growth. In the incarnational growth has to do with what Matthew 5:13-16 talks about. You are the light of the world, you are the salt of the earth. That if people have come to Jesus Christ and they are growing in number, then there must be impacts in the system, in the environment they find themselves. That is when we talk about effectiveness, because if there is no impact, then you cannot claim that a church is existing in that place, even if you have number, even if you have numerical growth. As long as it does not reflect in the businesses of the day, as long as it doesn't reflect in the offices, as long as it doesn't reflect in human activities, then we cannot say that we are talking about real-time growth, effective growth. So let's keep that in mind. Spiritual, numerical, and incarnational growth. How do we grow the church? How do we grow the church? Aggressive and intentional church planting. Aggressive and intentional church planting. However, this cannot happen without discipleship. You cannot have a healthy church without discipleship. And discipleship has to do with recruiting people into the kingdom, witnessing. It has to do with active evangelism. Active evangelism. Evangelism that is not structured. Evangelism that disciples of Christ do every day. Not until the system approves, not until the system sets a date and time for evangelism, not until there is a crusade, not until there is a revival program, but that the individual components in the church are actively witnessing, engaging the people they meet day to day, day by day, engaging them, testifying of Christ, seeking that they respond. So the first leg of discipleship is evangelism, which I like to call recruitment, because when organizations, corporations want to hire, when they place adverts, those who apply will now be interviewed. At the end of the interview, those that pass the interview will be selected. That is recruitment. And so those who are selected will now move to the next level, which is training. There is no functional, relevant organization today that does not train. And then if you go to the banks, for instance, you are going to see agricultural, BSc agriculture, you're going to see banking and finance, you're going to see religious studies, you're going to see FGBBO, you're going to see people with all kinds of degrees. They are not restricted to accounting. Again, they are not restricted to finance and banking. They recruit because they have a training for their recruits. They are going to sit down and begin to train you until you finish the training. That is when they will now assign you responsibility, and that is what is called deployment. So discipleship begins with active evangelism. As people respond and people step out and say, I'm willing to follow Christ, we sit them down and begin to train them. And let me tell us that we should not assume that the preaching on Sunday, the Bible studies that we do, the Sunday school, we should not assume that those things are the things that we are talking about. Because I have witnessed sessions in our church. You go to Sunday school. Sunday school is taught and is approached casually. Bible study, there is no intention, to help people to deepen their faith, but it's just done as a normal business. That is why if you go to our churches on Sunday, they will tell you we will have our normal Bible study on Wednesday, our normal Bible study on Tuesday. They call it normal. Discipleship is not a normal thing. So we run those activities. And that is why you see that we are still struggling. A pastor can stay 5 years and then he leaves. Another person will come. You will seem as if you are starting over again. That the people, are just coming to church afresh. Because it's not just standing on the pulpit, throwing words at people. At the end of the day, maybe prophetic utterance, prayers against death, prayers for prosperity are said, and the people go back, into the society, and then wait again to return on Sunday. Discipleship is a training that helps people who have given their life to Christ, enables Christ to be formed in their heart. Jesus Christ said, anyone who wants to follow me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. It's not everybody who comes to church that is ready to take up his cross and follow. These are deeper issues that demands certain levels of commitment that everybody cannot give. But this training helps, builds people, to that point where they understand what it means to follow Christ in truth, not just to be a church member, but to follow Christ in truth. So, because when we are talking about church growth, we are talking about church expansion, we're actually talking about growing the number of disciples, expanding the number of disciples, not just gathering people, not just running activities, but that the number of disciples, growing. If you read Acts of the Apostles, you're going to see something. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 6, verse 7. It said, so the word of God spread. The number of disciples in Jerusalem increased rapidly. Number 3, and a large number of priests became obedient to the faith. Follow the line. He said the word of God spread. It means that they were actively involved in evangelism. They were testifying. And then the number of disciples, it means that they were building people, and then he said a large number became obedient. Obedient in the sense that these people are carrying their cross, they are taking the risk for the kingdom, which is not done by everybody who comes to church. And so that is the picture of a church that is healthy, a church that is growing, a church that is expanding. Disciples are added. The number of people being obedient, because in the mandate, he said, teach them to obey everything that I have commanded. What separates the disciple from every other person is obedience to Christ, not just to the system, but obedience to Christ. Loyalty to Christ is what separates every other person. And then, as you finish, you release them to go and live, this life. So, to go and manifest Christ. And so, effective church expansion and growth produces responsible disciples, produces accountable disciples, produces fruitful or productive disciples, not just people who sit in the church. Because you have many people who come to church, but they are not responsible to anybody, responsible to anything, and they are not willing to take responsibility for anything. They don't get involved. They are simply consumers. These are the people who complain about visitation, complain about welfare, complain about all kinds of things in the church. But effective church expansion and growth raises disciples who are responsible to God, take responsibilities willingly, freely, willing, to make sacrifices, for the kingdom. Not people who before they say you put them in a committee, before they work, you must give them money for a time before they work. Not people who join committee because they want to make money, pilfer from the church. But these ones are willing to give, are willing to take risk, sacrifice. And then they are accountable. That in the sense that how they live their lives every day. They submit themselves for evaluation, because that is what discipleship is a relationship that also brings about accountability. They are willing to be allowed, to allow their lives to be examined. Not just living and say, it's my life. No, not those kind of people, but people who know that they will give account of how they live their lives every day. Productive in the sense that they are bringing others to the faith. They are not just coming, they are bringing others to the faith. Because if you have a church that people, the individuals are bringing others to the faith, this church planting thing would not be a difficulty. We talk about, money in church planting. The truth is that if you have disciples who know that they have to bring in other people, it is their time and energy that is needed, and the Holy Spirit will do the rest. It's not so much about money, but the willingness to obey God. Now, the role of mission coordinators and secretaries is that, first of all, if you have accepted this responsibility of mission coordinator, a mission secretary, we must embrace discipleship. That is where it starts, because you cannot lead church growth, church planting, if you don't understand, if you don't embrace what discipleship is. We must, first of all, take the lead in embracing discipleship, owning it, accepting that this is the model that Jesus Christ said, and this is what the mandate he gave. This is the way to follow. That is how Jesus Christ raised 11 people, poured the Spirit into them, and left, and then they continued. The church grew. It's discipleship. There is no other structure, there is no other strategy to grow the church than discipleship. Any other way you're going to spend the money. Of course, you have seen that we have done volumes of crusades. You finish a crusade in a place, 2 years, 3 years after, you go back, the same people are still answering altar call for those who are still alive, because some would have died. So they still come out to answer altar call because they were not discipled. And then the mission coordinators must prioritize discipleship. It must become our primary assignment, not just for us to answer names or to occupy offices. We must take it as our primary and sole responsibility. We must be intentional and aggressive in steering the consciousness of the people within our territories on this matter. That is, territories in the sense of presbyteries and synods. We must be intentional. Nobody approaches, church growth casually. Nobody approaches church expansion lazily. It is something that is, conscious, deliberate, intentional, and aggressive. How do we stay consciousness? Every synod is supposed to have prayer bulletins, either quarterly or once in 6 months, that you publish. Do a report. It contains the report of the activities. You raise prayer points, circulate them to parishes. Create a platform where these things can be posted, your activities are posted, and then consciousness is being kept alive from time to time. It is something that mission coordinators, secretaries have to do. That is their responsibilities. We must be intentional and aggressive in mobilizing resources, human and material, for this project. In the Synod of the North, there is a fellowship that is called Friends of the Lost. This thing needs to be replicated in all the synods. People who love God, people who are willing, to do missions, reach out to them, invite them to join this fellowship, create a WhatsApp group. Then from every month or every 2 months, do prayers, update them on what is happening, so that they understand, and then will also help to bring other people in. In the synod platform, presbytery platform, keep dropping messages about the work that you're doing. Keep, posting about this mission, and then as a mission coordinator and secretary, you also need to read about missions. Go to internet and punch missions, Christian missions. A lot of things will come out. There are bulletins, there are magazines, there are mission conferences. Nowadays, you can connect to mission conferences in any part of the world. You can sit in your house and attend. There is a mission, this thing platform that is called Joshua Project. We all need, to get into it because it helps us, to refresh our mind about global missions and what is happening. We must not be idle. We must not be lazy about this work. This will help us, in mobilizing resources, mobilizing, material for this work. And then we must resist the temptation to be discouraged because of the situation we have found ourselves today. Now, if you go and read Nehemiah, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, going, you will see that Nehemiah was resisted many times, but he refused to be discouraged. What is the situation we have found ourselves? One is that many synod moderators are not interested in mission. Many synod clerks are not interested. That in itself is enough to discourage you, but you must refuse to be discouraged. Many of our parish ministers are not interested. They don't encourage you and they will not encourage you, but you must not allow yourself to be discouraged. The money for missions is short in supply, and you must not allow that to discourage you. You have to resist every temptation to be discouraged, because the moment you are discouraged, then within your territory, the work is dead. These are the things we need to do as mission coordinators, mission secretaries. There is an attitude. There is an attitude to missions and discipleship in our church that weakens, that discourages the average person. Some of you may not have received salaries for some months, but that shouldn't make you to be discouraged. I don't have time to share my experiences when I was in the Synod of the North. I worked with people who had no interest. You go to meetings, they don't allow you to present report, or they will call for the mission report when they are sharing food. I saw a lot of things, but we kept pushing. We refused to be discouraged, and God help us. And so, brothers and sisters, church planting, is possible. Church growth is possible. Effective church planting and growth is possible. Effective in the sense that it is producing responsible Christians, producing accountable Christians, producing fruitful believers. These are the signs. These things are possible, but we must take our place. We must take a stand, and commit ourselves to obeying Christ first, to honoring Christ, and we will see His grace flow in our lives and in our work. Thank you for listening. I will wait for questions when the time comes. And this is where I'm stopping. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for what God is using you to do. Thank you, sir. We are so grateful, sir. Please, coordinators here present, please, if you have any question to ask, please, if you have any question, can you raise your hand up?